So I wanted to talk this evening briefly about something that came up for me countless times when I was on the path to waking up, and I see it time and time again in people that are coming to Satsang, and it may not be obvious at first, and that's why I want to try to hopefully point it out and shortcut some lengthy delays that may be happening. And that's really the way that awakening will manifest is not at all how we expect. And so it's worthwhile looking into that, because it's extremely likely that we're missing out on our own progress, that we're not noticing our own journey unfolding, because we're looking perhaps for the wrong, or looking in the wrong way, I should say. So for most people that I come across, and there was for myself, there is a huge expectation that at some point, if I listen to enough satsang or do enough meditation, do enough self-inquiry, I'm going to have this huge epiphany and I'm going to get the answer. I'm going to have it like revealed from inside, and there'll be this happening or an event that defines the fact, I will know when I'm there because something is going to happen. That's the kind of either conscious or unconscious expectation that I had. So I was looking to get the answer, and I thought that getting the answer was the right thing to do, and that was really dependent on how much work I put in as a seeker. If I meditate more, if I read more books, if I do more self-inquiry, then this event is going to come faster. And if you've ever tried that, you probably had the same experience as me, which was it actually has the opposite effect. So it's worthwhile looking at really what actually is occurring, and how to look for the fact that you're making progress. So we're going to have to shift our thinking really from expecting to get the answer. And the next thing that most of us do then intuitively is to expect that we're going to somehow become the answer, that somehow something's going to change and I'll start being the self, and I'll stop trying to get there. I'll become something will shift, or there'll be some moment, where I notice that something is, I have become what I've wanted to be, that it's actually happened. And again, this is kind of a delay tactic of mind as well. So it's a sneaky one. So it's a good one to really come to recognize that nothing is going to change for you, because you're not going to become the answer. Every person that I come across is looking for some external event that's going to tell them that they're awake, and they're always looking for the same answer, and that is that I'm going to, at some point, I'll stop experiencing negative emotions. I'll stop experiencing these states of confusion and doubt, and maybe even desperation. There's an expectation in almost everyone, and there was in myself deeply, that that's how I'll know when I'm there. That when that has stopped, then that's the hallmark of awakening. That's this kind of unconscious expectation we all have inside our being. And so all of this is coming from that this is going to be some happening, or even if there isn't some outer happening, something is going to shift for me. I'm going to become the answer. I'll find that I've become the answer somehow. Then those must be goals of our ego, that thinks that something is going to change. Can this actually be what happens? Because if we are already the self, what is necessarily going to change upon seeing that deeply enough? Is anything going to change in our outer environment? Can we rely on things changing in our emotional state or our mental habits of thought as evidence of our awakening, either the presence or absence of thoughts, to determine whether we're there or not, or the presence or absence of negative emotions and tensions in the body, or the presence or absence of karmic patterns still playing in our life. If we search deep inside with some inner honesty, you might find that there's some expectation that all of that is going to stop upon awakening. And that's when I'll know that I've done enough work, that I'm there and I can take my foot off the gas, so to speak. So if that's inside you somewhere, just encourage you to look. That makes sense from our ego's perspective, because it thinks it's going to change into the self, that it's going to become the awareness somehow, that something is going to shift. But really, what's actually occurring is at some point you're going to realize that you are the answer that you've been seeking always, that you can't get anything or become anything. You're just going to see, well, I already am that answer. And the clearer that that is seen, that I'm being it already and I can't not be it. And perhaps I haven't seen that for a long time because I've been waiting for something to change. And I ask, people are so sure that they haven't got it yet. And I ask them, why are you so sure? What's the evidence? They always give me the presence of thoughts or the occurrence of some negative emotional states as the evidence that they are still lacking awakening, as if something is going to change. And every time I'm trying to get them to see that that cannot define what they actually are. Those are things that are happening in the body. Those are things that are happening in the mind. Those, states of doubt or confusion or whatever it is that comes, some fear, some anger, some jealousy, some frustration, anything like that that is occurring is something that's happening in your biology. And can it affect you, the real self? And more importantly, does it need to stop before you'll recognize that you are already that? So most of us have seen, stories or seen awakened beings, and they report having this peace that doesn't shift, and there's an absence, some cessation of thoughts, either partially or completely, and they don't seem to be suffering any negative emotion at all. And if it does come up, it doesn't touch them at all. This is where we've kind of got this expectation from, that this is the sign, this is when I'll know. When my experience is like that awakened being, then I'll know that's when I'm there. But that awakened being didn't get there by trying to get rid of these emotional states. They just simply, or the thought patterns, or the karmic patterns even, they just simply came to see clearly enough that I am already the answer I've been looking for. And that conviction grew, that I can't get anything or I can't become anything. It just clearly coming to see what I've always been, and that isn't what I thought I was. They realize that they are already being that, in which all of these emotions and thoughts are just arising, and they're not the one, in fact, even that is trying to get rid of this stuff. And they're also not the one that needs evidence, that has a checklist saying this is what my awakened state will look like. There will be no, ego has its list. There'll be no negative emotions. Mind will be silent, and there'll be peace, love, joy, and bliss. And if it doesn't look like that, then I'm not there yet. Everyone, almost everyone, tells me that, that's what they're looking for. So I'm just urging you to look and see, is that going to give you the evidence of what you really are? because states are always changing in the mind and body. Can we somehow get them to look one particular way and manage to keep them the same for that length of time? Or does that peace and lack of disturbance come from not trying to make anything happen anymore? With a deep enough conviction, a seeing and another seeing and an even deeper seeing, that I am already that there isn't anything that needs to change for me to know that in my mind and body, and maybe even in my life. That just the seeing that I've had is going to be confirmation enough, and I'm going to keep seeing. Then there's something beautiful happens. We stop fighting with this moment, and we stop trying to change what is. And most importantly, we stop trying to define the progress of our awakening by the presence or absence of these disturbances in the mind or the body or our life in general. So if you can see that this is what you've been trying to do, you've had a mental checklist of, and I know I did, I was looking, all the great beings I'd ever seen in my entire life had these certain qualities, compassion and peace and love and wisdom and clarity. And they certainly didn't seem to be desperate or fearful or impatient or jealous like I was at the time. But they didn't, it's so important to see they didn't get to that place by trying to change how it was. They completely accepted that whatever is happening in my circumstances right now is not acceptable evidence for whether I am the self or not. It's only my looking and seeing and actually experiencing what I am that is acceptable evidence. That's the only thing that I'm going to accept as evidence. And that allowing the seeing itself to be enough begins to, and for them began to just allow them to just be in harmony with this moment without looking for any evidence at all of it manifesting in an outer way. And of course, we all want peace and love and joy, and we all want to come to that place where we're not suffering. But that has to happen first on that inward seeing, that the seeing of I am that already. And perhaps even more importantly, as that becomes a regular seeing and you're seeing it deeper, that I've always been that. I've never been what I thought I was. I've never been what I imagined I was. No matter how convinced I was 20, 30 years ago, or even 5 years ago, or even 5 minutes ago, that I was a person seeking enlightenment. And perhaps no matter how convinced I was that I wasn't there yet, that has never been true, ever. So when that seeing has gone deep enough, and how do you do that? You just keep looking and seeing what you actually are again and again and again and again. And just falling in love with what you actually are. You're going to realize that you already are what you're seeking. You already are what you're trying to head towards, what some part of you is trying to move towards. You may not be outwardly waiting for some firework moment anymore, where the angels come down and God shakes your hand and says, well done, you're there now, and gives you an enlightenment badge. But you may be on the inside still trying to become something other than you actually are now. You may be in constant argument with this moment and constant argument with the self that you are already. I mean, how could emotions and thoughts and states define that beautiful, vast expanse of your being that all that is happening in? Is that acceptable evidence? So the very first moment that your own seeing and your own direct experience is enough for you, is enough proof and you stop expecting anything to change to fit your checklist. It's not even your checklist anyway, really, is it? It's mind's checklist. That you're already the one that's not disturbed. Whether your body and mind are experiencing that consistently or not yet is another matter, but you must start from that place already where you are that. And then that will begin to permeate your mind and body, begin to resonate throughout your mind and body, and then eventually your entire life. It's never ever going to happen if you're looking for something to change. How can it when you are already that, already? You know, if you were the ego and you had to become the self, then to look for some change in your inner state or some change in your outer world would make sense as evidence of that happening. But what is going to change in the moment of recognition? You know, and it's not just one moment of recognition. There's many moments of deepening recognition where I'm not at all what I thought I was. And it'll be shocking and wow. And then it'll get clearer and clearer. You know, I'm not anything I can think of or imagine. And then that deepening conviction will be, I've never been what I imagine myself to be. And that is going to have a powerful effect on your energy. It's going to ensure that perhaps for the first time in your life, you're not in argument with anything that exists in this moment. Most of us are spending our entire existence resisting what is present right now because we're looking for some external or internal change as proof. But if you are the self now, you've been that forever. Whether you've recognized it or not is a different matter, but you've already always been it. And that acceptance and allowing that to just be enough is going to ironically change everything for you. You'll just notice this ability to resist what is, and even to label what is going to start to collapse immediately. When you say this moment as it is right now, and what I am in this moment is enough, is adequate, is fine. And you're not needing any state to change or anything to happen or to feel any particular way. And you can do this right now. You can just drop all of your agendas, drop all of the proof that you're looking for. And immediately there'll be a contentment present that has always been there, but has been covered over perhaps by this need to try to get somewhere or become something. So what evidence do you need in the moment when you stop fighting with what is? Even if what is right now is some negative emotion, if you simply stop arguing with it, saying that it should or shouldn't be, then you're going to experience a very different way of living, a different way of experiencing your awakening. It'll be happening now. It is already now. So those beings, those great beings, have achieved that peace and that bliss and that joy because they're just no longer fighting anything at all. It makes no difference to them whether they're feeling bliss or feeling fear. It's just another state that comes upon the body. It's just another mental pattern that goes through the mind. And all of it is just happening inside the space that is your real being. All of it is just passing through the vast expanse of the self. And the self cannot argue with anything at all. It may seem strange to say that there's something that the infinite being cannot do, but that is it. The one thing it cannot do is be in resistance with anything at all already. So I'd urge you to check your experience and look at why are you in satsang? Why are you listening to this? Are you listening because you're hoping that something's going to happen? Are you waiting for an epiphany? or a revelation? Or is there just a sense that's ever growing in the background, getting louder and louder as the weeks go past, that there's something about me that's just already content and still and isn't trying to reach any goals at all? It's already adequate and whole. It's not needing any evidence. There isn't any to-do list in that place. And if you will allow that to be enough, the place where you're not suffering, even now, then it's going to begin to just make itself more and more obvious as you make room for it by just letting go of trying to change. Of course, everyone wants to feel positive states. Of course, everyone wants to feel love and peace and joy. But they can only come as an outer reflection of what you know to be true in here. Even your body and the love that you feel is out there to the self, isn't it? The self isn't a feeling. It isn't a thought. It's not imagination. It's not any of that. Love arises out of it. Peace arises out of it. Joy and bliss and compassion and patience and wisdom and all the things that we're seeking. Abundance too. It's going to naturally arise like steam arising off of hot water. You can't make steam arise. You can't stand there and say you should be doing this particular thing. It's just the nature of steam to rise off of hot water. And that's what happens when you're recognizing that I'm not at all what I thought I was, that there's something about me that's indefinable and indescribable. So it's an opportunity really that I'm offering to just put down your to-do list in this moment and to recognize that whatever you call it, that just is, even if it doesn't feel peaceful yet, even if it's not deep bliss or joy yet, even if it's not going to fix your problems yet, you know, if your problems haven't immediately disappeared. Is this enough for you now in this moment? Will you honor what you actually are in this moment? Or are you going to keep traveling some more? There's an opportunity present every single moment just to take a step into your real self and to just allow that to be enough for this moment. To not demand anything from this moment is the highest joy that's naturally going to arise from just allowing however all of this is, however my mind is, however my body is, however my emotions are, wherever I think my awakening's at. I'm just going to completely abandon looking for any change or needing anything to define who I am. How can any phenomenal evidence anyway define or describe the progress of your own seeing when you are not a phenomena? You're not a phenomenon. You're not a thing. You know, things happen inside you. Objects appear inside you. You're not that already. It's like the ocean expecting the waves to come to a standstill before it feels like the ocean. Is that ever going to occur? Even if somehow the ocean surface became really calm, it's going to move again, isn't it? Next time the wind blows. So there is a place already inside your real being that is already bulletproof to all of this, that doesn't need to become anything, is incapable actually of becoming anything. And then mind and body will experience becoming more like the classic awakened state that's being described, you know, and displayed by many awakened beings, the peace and the love and the joy. But only from this wave first. You can never get it from the outside in. You're never going to get your experience to look like evidence of being the self. You have to be the self first, and then your outer experience will begin to mirror that back to you. This is slowing down or stopping and just noticing already what's here in this moment. And you'll find that it's absolutely adequate, that you don't actually need to go looking for anything. And all of this out here is also yourself. So that all this is going to eventually rearrange itself somehow to agree with your authenticity inside. It's going to rearrange itself to agree with your peace that's developing, your contentment. You cannot make that happen. And it doesn't give you permission to be the self. And it's certainly, if it isn't rearranging itself yet, it's certainly not evidence for me that you're not already that. There is no evidence you can give me that you're not already that. So don't give yourself that evidence. Don't take it so lightly, and don't accept it so easily. You know, when something suggests that you're not there yet, that this shouldn't be happening if you're awake. You know, or this should be happening if you are awake. Just allowing that silence and that deep emptiness to be enough. That's all we have to work on, if there is anything at all to do. Okay, so I have a question here I'm going to read out, but I will open it up for questions, or if anybody wants to share. If you do want to ask a question or share something, if you click on participants at the bottom of your screen and scroll down to the bottom, there's a little option that says raise hand. So it'll let me know that you want to ask a question. So you can do that now if you want to while I'm reading this question. Okay. So this is quite a personal question. So I'm not going to read all of it because there's a lot of personal details in there. So this person has been noticing the self and seeing deeper into the self. And they say that to do that, they've been looking at ego's beliefs. And she says there is a deep, peaceful feeling. And then as soon as this peace was felt, the ego came back with a vengeance. At the same time, there was a kind of attack, verbal attack from someone else. And that caused a sense of fear and even hatred inside them, you know. So they've been going deeper into the self, and suddenly ego rises up, and at the same time this external thing happened that just really seemed to trigger these negative emotions. So she's asking, is this normal in the healing process, and how to work with it? Because there's a sense of being disturbed. So yeah, so it's totally normal. You know, the more that we are being authentic in this moment, being the self, the more that the old ego patterns are going to come up to the surface. So she's putting this message, they come with a vengeance, but they don't have any intelligence of their own. They're not coming up to attack us. These patterns, perhaps fear and hatred was another one, that anger, whatever we're feeling. So it's not a mistake that these things are coming back up. It's actually a good thing, because the first time in it doesn't feel good, but the first time perhaps we're actually in a place where we can allow them to rise to the surface. So they're not attacking you. They're not, it's not a fault or a flaw in your awakening or yourself. And this is why I've been saying we can't expect these things to stop immediately, because they are just energies that we haven't been able to heal. And how do we heal those energies? Well, as that self that just is, that it just allows everything to be as it is already. There's a part of you that's always been doing that, no matter what state's been going on. So just allowing these energies to come up, which they will do. But if you can see that they're going to come up, and do the best you can to allow them when they come, that perhaps all they need from us is just some allowance and some space. Your body is more than capable of feeling the emotion, whatever it is, and allowing it to just be transmuted back into peace. Each of these negative emotions, for myself, there was a lot of anger, a lot of fear, and a huge serving of unworthiness, like most of us. So that just had to be felt. It was just asking for permission to come back into the wholeness of my being. And as the self, there's nothing that can reject or resist, and you don't need that to go away before you feel whole. You're already starting from the place of wholeness. So if we're saying when these energies come up that they should not happen, if we're saying that this is evidence that I'm not awake, that I've lost it or I've done something wrong, that they should not be, this fear and whatever it is, then we're also going to experience that from our outer world as well. We're also going to experience the reflection of that. If we're stating, when these egoic patterns come up, that I am not how I'm supposed to be, I should not be this way, is effectively what we're saying, then our outer world is going to have to agree with us too. It's going to have to bring us evidence also from other beings, other situations, that we're not how we're supposed to be. So this is why this ego arises, and this person has experienced some kind of verbal challenge with this other being. So the very moment that you turn that around and say, this is a good thing, this is coming back, asking for permission. Every emotion is on its own journey to enlightenment and just wants to come back. When we're no longer resisting that emotion, it will spontaneously turn into peace. It'll be felt for as long as it lasts, and then it'll become diffuse and back into the peace. And if there's nothing within us anymore, or we're not agreeing at least anymore that it should not be that way, then our outer experience is going to also agree that yes, you are exactly how you are supposed to be right now. Some of the great awakened beings of the past have had their fair struggle with negative emotions, and they had to do this exact same thing to realize that they were just asking us to love them. They were just asking us to be that love that we are, that we can already step into that role, that we can welcome this emotion, even though we perhaps prefer not to feel it right now. It is already here, and it's not a mistake. It's actually evidence of our awakening deepening, that this can now come back and ask for acceptance in a way. If we're rejecting anything that arises from ego after we've had a seeing, or we've been in that peace, then we're really saying, I shouldn't be how I am right now. And there is no more self-negating vibration than that. This fear should not be. Well, it is, and it's part of you. So you're saying, I should not be how I am. How is it ever going to resolve itself? It will disappear. It will go back down under the conscious radar, but it will have to try again at some point. So if you can change the way of thinking, this is very normal. I went through this. There was quite an intense period after really seeing what I am, where these things came up. And I had to just accept them when they came. You know, I fought them, as we all do. I tried to push them away because they didn't feel as nice as peace. But eventually I realized that this is just the next stage. This is how you live it, by stopping being what you're not. You know, ego pushes against these emotions. They should not be here. I should not be feeling this way. To turn that around and to be the self and allow these energies to come and be felt and to dissipate. They're just frequencies. They don't feel so nice, but only because we're pushing against them. So as the self, just to recognize that you already have that capacity to just allow them to be. So it's very normal, and how to work with it. Well, I'll describe that now. So hopefully that's given you something to work with. It's not a mistake. And most importantly, it's really not evidence that you're doing it wrong at all. Okay. I've got some hands up. So Mike?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yep.
So you sort of answered my question by answering that question, which usually happens, you know, when one person asks a question, it sort of answers yours. But I just wanted to check in with you that, you know, when you said earlier in your lecture part of this satsang, you know, to just accept what is at this moment. And my thing has always been my constant chattering, distracted mind that's always churning out thoughts and just never stops. And so part of that is to accept that that is just stuck on a loop, that also not only does the chattering, but it also keeps looking for enlightenment. Like it won't stop looking for that moment that you're talking about. And so just part of the acceptance is just accepting, yes, the mind is stuck in this loop that it won't stop looking for the moment. That's just part of the accepting. And what I found is, I wrote about it a little bit in the Facebook post this morning, when that is fully accepted and just allowed to be what it is, you know, more peace comes up, it calms down, like there's a little bit more space in my consciousness now. Like it's not as heavy in there.
I can really feel the difference. Yeah, you've really let go of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and it just truly comes from total acceptance of what is in the moment, but also, like you said, realizing that's still not you, all of you anyway. I mean, if you're just totally identifying with it, then it'll seem louder in there. But when you're not identifying with it totally, and it's, you know, it doesn't define you and it's not your problem, like you've said many times, then it's allowed to be. And then without me even trying, all of a sudden there's space in there.
Yeah.
So I just want to check in, that's how it generally works.
Yeah, no awakened being has ever found a way to quieten their mind, or to make their ego feel awakened, or something like that. It's just impossible. But it's more of a clear seeing that I don't need to do that. That actually, if I stop, if I don't identify with that, if I clearly see that's never been what I truly am, that somehow it just stops doing that by itself. I mean, even right now, there'll be more space in the mind, more space in you, but more space from the mind, and also more quietness in the mind. You know, something that there's a real sort of knowing that actually my insistence that this should change, it was what was actually fueling it. You know, there's something, my expectation of my mind or my ego, same thing as far as I'm talking about, that that it should change and somehow resolve itself upon seeing the real being that I am. It's just not realistic, is it? How could something that works in duality and time and space come to understand the timeless, formless you? And you just got to leave it alone. You know, that's the highest form of love, isn't it? You know, just to let it be as it is, completely, in all of its insanity.
Yeah. I'm sort of comparing it to like a really annoying relative at a party that just won't stop talking. And if you try to tell, you know, that person, like, will you just stop talking? They get even louder and more belligerent.
Yeah.
And so if you just say, you know, allow the person to talk, and there's this whole house that I can be a part of right now. So you can just keep on talking and I'll just, you know, enjoy the rest of this space.
I'm just going to go to this big empty room where the walls are soundproofed. you know, and they're still talking in the other room, but you're not really interested, not in a cold way. It's just that you're done trying to fix that part of you, you know, and then it somehow just falls apart in a good way, or falls together in a good way, rather than, you know, for me, there's definitely an expectation that upon seeing the self, the mind will just go quiet. But it was really more like I just didn't really care anymore whether it was talking or not. You know, there's such a distance between you and the mind, not because you're pushing it away. It's just, it's a part of duality, and you just already before duality, and that's seen clearly, and there's no big deal whether it's talking or not. You know, as you say, you just move to another room, and then suddenly everything's, I can't even hear it anyway, and you're kind of like, what did you say? You know.
Yeah, and the loving acceptance that it just is, and then the peace just came without me even trying to get to peace. It was just sort of there.
Yeah, it's just a natural thing that arises, peace, when you're no longer arguing with the what is. You can't not be peaceful then. You don't need anything to change, most of all your ego or your mind, which is what it means to identify as the self, to be the self. It's not in argument with anything, is it? It doesn't care whether your mind's talking or not. It's equally peaceful either way.
Yeah. I remember hearing another teacher say something like, enlightenment is 100% cooperation with what is.
Yeah. Absolute cooperation with the inevitable. Anthony de Mello.
Was that it? Yeah, that was something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And I love that, because, you know, there's all the things that we want to cooperate, and we really want to cooperate with peace and bliss and joy, but am I going to cooperate with fear and anger and shame and all of those things that we really feel should not be here now? I've had some real seeing, you know, I've been doing this for so many years, I shouldn't be feeling this way. You know, and the difference with the awakened state is it just doesn't make any difference to what you know yourself to be if some negative emotion arises. It's just kind of, oh, look at that, you know, I didn't know that was there. And there's nothing that can try to do anything with it at all. And that just, ego just dissolves in that embrace, where you just, it's like you've had this friend that you've been constantly trying to change. You know, I like you more when you're like this, and then finally, you know, you're all right as you are, actually. You know, I don't need you to change. And they just go, oh, my God, you know, they feel safe then.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and I find myself being able to more move towards those uncomfortable emotions that originally was always like a hand up was pushing them back, but now it's just, oh, it's just fear. Well, you know, what does it have to say? Letting it be.
It's just asking for acceptance, isn't it? For you to feel it, for your body to feel it, which we've not been able to do before, because we were believing I'm scared, so we can't feel it. But if it's just fear, and it's happening in the immensity of your being, in the silence, the deep, profound silence, the body's scared. There's just a total allowance of that, with no need for it to stop or change. Of course, that really just allows it to pass. You know, it'll go in minutes or even seconds, you know, rather than hours or days, as it was for me when I, you know, things first came up after the deep seeing. You know, so you realize it's going to pass as quick as you allow it to.
Yep.
Very good. Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Steve Harben.
Okay.
Hello.
Screen's gone blank. I can't see Helen. Off-putting.
Oh, okay. I'm still here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I can't remember what we're going to say now, but listening to Satsang be all the way through, really, even to the question, it seemed like it's exactly you were talking about, exactly what I'm dealing with at the moment. Yeah, am I right there? Something like.
Well, tell me what you're dealing with at the moment, and then if I give me a clue. Yeah.
That's what
I'm not psychic, actually, so.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'll tell you yesterday about the problem of what I've been having repetitive, same thing over and over again. And now I can push it back. I can ask. What I've been doing with that question anyway is saying, is it true? Is it really true? And eventually it pushes it back. It does, it works. But it really does keep coming back. And then I've got to say, is it true again? I go around it all again. You know what I mean?
Just remind me of the question you've been asking. Am I suffering? Is that the one we talked about? Am I the one suffering? Am I actually suffering? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the question I ask.
Yeah.
The true self. But the question that's coming up, I ask, is that true? Do I?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Two things going up.
Okay.
But you just said something. If you don't see this, if you don't see this through, it will keep returning. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it keeps returning. It's the same thing.
So the fruit of this question, am I suffering here? Am I actually suffering here? The end result of this question will be a resounding, no, I'm not actually. And I'm not suffering. So the effect of that realization is you're going to fully allow what comes up. You know, we reject whatever arises emotionally or mentally to the extent that we think we're suffering from it. But imagine if you had 100% conviction already that nothing has ever caused me to suffer, then you just wouldn't mind at all what came in the mind and body. You just it's just like what's playing on the TV. It's just playing that, you know, that channel's playing, and it wouldn't make any difference to your state, you know, your sense of well-being. So the end point of this question is the realization, actually, no, I'm not suffering. And that's a natural openness then for this thing to come. So if I really know, if I really know that I'm not suffering, that it's just mind suggestion.
Right.
Yes, there is fear, or yes, there is anger, or whatever it is. But am I scared? Am I angry? Or is it just an emotion? Yes, it may be intense when it comes, but to the extent that you've seen, I'm not actually suffering from this. I'm already the space in which it's happening. Then it's just going to be allowed to come and be felt for as long. I think one day I remember feeling a lot of fear, and it went on for about 3 days in the end. I didn't suffer a single second of it.
All right, yeah.
Right. A couple of times I had to remind myself I wasn't. There's a thought crept back. How long is this going to go on for? But there was just an acceptance. It'll take as long as it takes. You know, I spent my entire existence feeling scared of everything, and not being able to cope with life in a way. You know, that it'll take as long as it takes now for my body to feel this and to just allow it to be transmuted back into peace.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah. And if you're not suffering, if you know you're not suffering, then you're not going to be bothered about how long it takes or how intense it is. You know, there's something already, the silence of your being is just it's unable to argue with it, and it doesn't make any difference to silence whether you're feeling peaceful or not, you know.
I can take it through to that silence, and I think it's all right, it's gone now. So, oh, you're all right, you see it now. Yeah. And then a minute later, it's snuck back in. I'm having a conversation. Are you sure? I'm back into doing it again. I've done it. And it's like, is that what you're saying? I've got to keep going back to silence with it.
Yeah.
Is that true?
How does the silence deal with fear? How does the silence deal with anger? How does it cope with, you know, what's its strategy against unworthiness? It's just like, it's like the sun, isn't it? It shines equally on everything. It's not saying you should go away, you know, or the subtle things we do. Okay, I'm going to feel this emotion so that it goes. You know, I'm going to fully allow this so that I'm finally rid of it. That's not really love, is it? That's kind of, you know, ego's cheap version of, I'm going to allow this so I feel better afterwards.
That's sneaked in, isn't it?
Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
And like I was saying, you know, subtle thoughts that creep back in. This should be finished by now. Why is it taking so long? Yeah. And it's like, hang on a minute. I'm not bothered whether it's here or not, actually. there is a place already that's just, even if it lasts for a year, not that it could in that, in that non-resistant energy, but even if it lasts for a week, it doesn't matter to the self. I realized I'd spent my entire life feeling fearful, and the self was okay with that too. It just been watching my idea of myself being scared of everything, and it never once can say it should or shouldn't be this way.
Right.
So the question is gonna, if it's allowed to go to its fruition, it's gonna show you that you're not suffering, and a natural side effect of that is a total allowance of what is. Yeah, good, bad, or ugly, whichever mind would label it.
I think I've seen that in the med, quietly in my silent place.
Yeah.
And another thing, what I always forget, or I find it hard to bring it to my mind when I go through this thing, and it seems to be every couple of months I go through something like this. It's a bit like my old ISB osteopressed one. I wonder if it's just a cycle that I'm going through, and I start blaming stuff. But I never think this is part of the deal, Steve. This is part of the waking up. It's not negative.
It's certainly not evidence of my failure, which is what we all decide.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's part of the deal, Steve. So if I can accept and think what's in front of me next, you know what I mean? This is going to show you something. If I can think that way, I'm positive. Well, it's killing me here. I'm going mad here. I'm negative, you know what I mean? But the silence will take care of it all, won't it?
Absolutely. And it'll handle it so easily. There's just a great love for whatever inner seeing, but I was never what I thought I was. Then there's, as that deepens, there's automatically a love for your old idea of yourself, and I want to resolve any of the emotional states and fragments of the ego that we haven't been able to love until this point. That's the self wants to love these things. He doesn't want anything, but you get a sense, it's
just acceptance of everything. Totally. I mean, it's not like acceptance with the mind.
Unconditional. Not so that it goes, not so that I feel better. Nothing. Acceptance just because it is. This emotion is here, therefore I'm going to honor it, because that's the self, isn't it?
It's all idea. It's already accepted. It's just, so I've heard it said, it's just that someone inside me is rejecting it. Being a deep level, it's already here. So why are you rejecting it?
The part of you that is unconditionally allowing and accepting and loving of it is so much more powerful than the bit that's going, no. You don't have to get rid of that no. You just go, actually, yes, I'll do the yes, and then we'll, see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, lovely. It's always, if it keeps coming back and it hasn't been resolved yet, it's always because we haven't fully unconditionally loved it yet. We might have tolerated it or allowed it or half accepted it,
Sounds about right.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, I think they'll come a piece with it, then it just raises its head again and it starts sort of bloody hell again. You know what I mean?
There's a sign to tell whether you've actually really loved it, and that is if the thought if it pops back up again, and the thought pops up, not you again, like that's just a sign that we've been trying to love it from ego, and maybe we can just love it as the self. Okay. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Maggie and Ian.
Hi, it's me.
Hello.
Hi. Funnily enough, what you talked about tonight was just what I needed to hear again. There's been a residue of sludge that has come up, and it doesn't have a massive impact. It can have a reaction, but the reaction doesn't stick like it used to. And today there was the same thing came up again, but not that strong. Started to feel a bit blur. And I just thought, I'm not doing this anymore. So I can go down that and start to feel negative and have doubts about myself and not love myself. And there was a little bit of a battle going on about it, just very quietly. And then just before Satsang, when I knew I was going to have to speak, and there was a sorry about the background noise. It'll stop now.
It's okay, don't worry.
Then there was there was a doubt about my ability or whatever, and I actually looked at. I thought, what is different today from Tuesday or Wednesday? What is different? And I completely saw it was just thoughts. I thought, well, I can believe those thoughts, or I can just recognize that there's still something to look at and let it be. And there was a little bit of shouldn't be doing this. Just before Satsang, I kind of just completely allowed it and let it be. And then as you were talking, it just slipped away again. Just the rest of it just slipped away. I just thought, I'm not doing it anymore.
Because you weren't in an argument with it while you're listening. If you're just sort of paying attention and listening, you can't be resisting at the same time.
No.
You know, it's the whole thing we've been talking about tonight is what the meaning, isn't it, that we're giving it? You know,
absolutely.
Yeah. If ego arises and I give it a negative meaning, that it shouldn't be coming now, then it's going to keep on trying and bouncing against this resistance and going back down and then up. You know, if I'm giving it a positive meaning, oh, you know, this is really good, I'm really getting there, you know, then it's also going to bounce a little bit. But if it's just allowed to arise and it's given no meaning, meaning you're not using it to define where you are on your awake-o-meter, you know, it's just arising.
I also recognize that when I started to kind of like believe it a little bit initially, when I started to feel a bit sluggish, I recognised that instantly had an effect on how I was doing the thing that I was feeling negative about. It immediately started to kind of not go wrong, but I could see.
Oh, you mean it physically manifested in what you were doing?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I thought, hang on a minute, why is this different? Why does it feel different? And it was all just a few thoughts.
Yeah.
A few thoughts. So.
And it'll show up very quickly in a very physical way.
Yeah.
You know, like there was one thought over the weekend, like I've been working a bit too much, I could do with a break. And then I get a flat tire, you know, straight away. So it's just showing you, isn't it, where there's a meaning still being given, you know, to something. And just when ego arises, it's treated exactly the same as rain falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
Then, you know, it's just rain. It doesn't mean anything other than that, does it?
Yeah.
You're not standing there looking at the clouds going, why is it raining? You know, it's doing it.
I recognise that because I saw you do it and your journey, and I recognise that the belief in it is the belief in the issue is getting less and less each time it comes up. It might be felt a bit, but I don't allow myself to feel that as a negative anymore.
Yeah, that's good.
It's hard to explain it, but yeah.
There just comes a point where you realise it's not even that you've become that which doesn't resist. You just realise that there's always a part of me that just isn't in an argument with reality.
Yeah.
However, it's and then just recognise it's just so much easier if I live from that place.
Yeah.
You know? Even if something pops up and says this shouldn't be happening, it's that's okay too. It's fine, isn't it? Absolutely fine. It's just a thought. Then it doesn't cause any. It isn't believed and doesn't result in a negative emotion. No. It's just mind's opinion, isn't it?
Yeah. And there was because I didn't battle it, there wasn't any, and it didn't get any worse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there wasn't, you know, you were saying just then, Steve, and I've done it many times, that I'm gonna let this be so it goes. I'm going to totally allow it so it goes. You know, there wasn't any of that, because I know that one doesn't work.
I tried that for a while. It's not really acceptance, is it? You know, I love you as long as you change from fear into love, you know.
Yeah. I'm going to love this emotion.
So that it changes to something that feels nicer. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Can I just share something?
Yeah, you can.
Again, just when you were talking to Steve about asking a question, you know, one of the questions, I've asked a number of questions over months, I suppose. And but I can see that when you said that, you asked the question because you want to get rid of something. You want to get rid of the fear or rid of the whatever. It doesn't kind of work that way.
No.
And it really kind of, when you were chatting to see that, oh, I did that so much. And I feel that it's kind of shifted a little bit quite recently, where I'm asking a question really out of curiosity.
Yeah, that's a huge sign, really, that I just actually want to know if I'm actually suffering, or I would just actually want to know what I really am. You know, not so that this painful ego that I thought I was will disappear.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be a mixed motive behind our self-inquiry at first, our questioning, our contemplating, and that's fine. But eventually it should be refining to just that curiosity is a really good place, isn't it? That openness.
It really does feel like it's finally changed, and I'm just asking, and I'm just wondering, is it really true that I'm unsafe? And this kind of thing, it's quite, and I'm just like, okay, you know, and I'm not really looking for a big, I guess I was waiting for a big response, you know, as you do, or something, you know. I'm just asking the question.
And the realization will be that I've always been that was already secure. And at some point you'll look at your life and it'll be reflecting back that security to you.
Yeah.
But nothing actually, there was no big pivotal moment. It's just as you've recognized, actually, that really wasn't me ever. You know, that's an imagined self, and then there's no urge to push that away if it's just imagination, if it's a dream, you know, then your life will just sneakily, quietly start to reflect that back to you, and you'll look at your life at one point, you go, wow, everything has kind of changed, but not because I made it, you know. So very good.
Okay, I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, curiosity is the key, definitely. Like we had as kids, you know.
Yeah, that's how it feels. Yeah.
Wonderful. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Lovely. So we will leave it there for tonight. Some wonderful questions there. Thank you and sharing. So namaste.